Have you ever had one of those moments where you're doing something completely ordinary, brushing your teeth, driving to work, making coffee, and suddenly you're struck by the sheer strangeness of being alive? Not just alive in the biological sense, but aware, conscious, thinking about thinking, knowing that you know, standing outside yourself, observing yourself, wondering why there's a self to observe in the first place. It passes quickly, this moment. It has to, because if it didn't, if you really stayed with that awareness, you might never brush your teeth again. Most animals don't have this problem. A deer doesn't wake up wondering about the meaning of being a deer. A bird doesn't question whether its song has purpose. They just are. They exist without the burden of knowing they exist. But you are different. You're cursed with consciousness. That's not poetic exaggeration. That's the uncomfortable thesis of a Norwegian philosopher named Peter Wessel Zapffe, who spent his life thinking about something most of us try very hard not to think about, that human consciousness might be nature's most tragic mistake. Imagine for a moment that evolution is not a ladder leading upward toward perfection, but more like a blind experiment. Mutations happen, some help survival, some don't. Most do nothing at all. And occasionally, very occasionally, evolution produces something that works too well. Like a peacock's tail that becomes so elaborate it can barely fly, or antlers so large they get caught in trees. Traits that, taken too far, become liabilities. According to Zapffe, human consciousness is one of those traits. We evolved the capacity for abstract thought, for planning, for imagination, all incredibly useful for survival. But somewhere along the way, that capacity crossed a threshold. We became aware not just of our surroundings, but of ourselves. Not just of danger, but of mortality. Not just of problems, but the fundamental absurdity of existence itself. And unlike the peacock, we're stuck with it. A brain sophisticated enough to ask questions it can never answer, to see patterns that may not be there, to create meaning in a universe that offers none. This is what Zapffe called the biological paradox, the idea that life has evolved a creature whose consciousness has outpaced its ability to cope with what that consciousness reveals. You've felt this, haven't you? Maybe you were lying awake at 3 a.m. and suddenly you became acutely aware of your own mortality, not as an abstract concept, but as a visceral reality. This body will stop. This mind will end. Everything you are will cease to be. Or maybe you were in the middle of some important meeting, some serious conversation, and you suddenly saw it all from the outside, saw the absurdity of these talking apes in clothes, taking themselves so seriously, as if any of it mattered in the vast indifference of the cosmos. These moments are terrifying because they're true. They're glimpses of reality without the comforting filters we've built to make existence bearable. And here's where Zapffe gets really interesting, because he didn't just identify the problem, he identified how we survive it. Zapffe argued that humans have developed 4 main defense mechanisms against the terror of full consciousness. 4 ways we protect ourselves from seeing too clearly, from feeling too much, from understanding too completely what we actually are. He called them isolation, anchoring, distraction, and sublimation. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. You'll notice them everywhere, in yourself, in everyone around you, in the entire architecture of human civilization. The first mechanism is isolation. This is when you simply cut off the thoughts that threaten to overwhelm you. You feel that existential dread starting to creep in, and you just don't go there. You change the channel in your mind. Someone asks you what happens after death, and you say, I don't know, and immediately start talking about something else. You read a news story about some tragedy, and you feel that pull toward genuine empathy, toward really sitting with the horror of it, and then you scroll past. You have to. If you absorbed every piece of suffering, every reminder of fragility, you'd collapse under the weight. Isolation is the emotional firewall. It keeps the dangerous thoughts quarantined, locked away in rooms you've learned not to enter. The second mechanism is anchoring. This is when you attach yourself to something, a belief system, a career, a relationship, a cause, and you hold on tight. You let that thing define you, give you structure, provide answers to questions you're afraid to ask yourself. Religion is perhaps the most obvious anchor. It tells you why you're here, what you should do, where you're going after death. It transforms the terrifying unknown into a comprehensible story. But anchoring isn't limited to religion. You can anchor to your work, telling yourself that your job gives your life meaning. You can anchor to your children, to your political ideology, to your identity as an artist or an athlete or an intellectual. The anchor itself doesn't matter. What matters is that it stops you from drifting into the existential void. It says, this is who you are. This is what matters. Hold on to this. The third mechanism is distraction. And oh, we've gotten good at this one. Zapffe was writing in the 1930s, long before smartphones, before streaming services, before the internet turned distraction into an industrial-scale operation. But he already saw it, the way humans fill every moment of silence, every gap of potential reflection, with noise. You check your phone while waiting in line. You turn on the TV the moment you get home. You schedule your days so tightly there's no room for the mind to wander into dangerous territory. Think about the last time you were truly bored, not inconvenienced, not waiting for something, but genuinely, deeply bored, with nothing to do and nowhere to be. How long did it last before you reached for something, anything, to fill that void? We've built an entire civilization around distraction. We've turned it into an art form, an economy, a way of life. And finally, there's sublimation. This is the most sophisticated defense mechanism, and in some ways the most beautiful. Sublimation is when you take that existential dread, that awareness of meaninglessness, and you channel it into something creative. You transform the horror into art, philosophy, music, literature. You make something from nothing. This is what artists do, what writers do, what philosophers do. They stare into the abyss, and then they paint it, write about it, theorize it. They take the unbearable and make it bearable by turning it into something outside themselves. Zapffe himself was engaged in sublimation. He was taking the darkest implications of consciousness and crafting them into philosophy, making the terror beautiful, or at least comprehensible. But here's what Zapffe wants us to see. These mechanisms aren't solutions, they're coping strategies. They don't resolve the paradox of consciousness, they just help us live with it. We isolate because we have to. We anchor because we need to. We distract because we must. We sublimate because it's the only way to make beauty from terror. But underneath it all, the truth remains. We're animals that have evolved to understand our own mortality, our own insignificance, our own cosmic solitude, and that understanding is almost too much to bear.
So what do you do with this? Once you see the mechanisms, once you recognize how much energy you spend not thinking about certain things, not feeling certain feelings, not asking certain questions, what then? Zapffe's answer might surprise you, or maybe it won't, because his answer is, there is no answer. Or rather, the answer is to acknowledge that there is no answer and keep going anyway. This is where his philosophy gets uncomfortable in a different way, because most philosophies, even the dark ones, eventually offer you something, a way out, a silver lining, a reason to hope. Zapffe doesn't. He looks at the human condition and says, yes, it's as bad as you think, maybe worse. And the mechanisms we use to cope are just that, mechanisms, band-aids on an existential wound that won't heal. But, and this is subtle, there's a kind of freedom in that honesty. When you stop expecting the universe to provide meaning, you also stop being disappointed when it doesn't. When you accept that consciousness is a burden, You can stop feeling guilty for finding it heavy. When you recognize your coping mechanisms for what they are, you can use them consciously instead of being unconsciously controlled by them. Let me give you an example. Say you've had a terrible day. Everything that could go wrong did. You're exhausted, frustrated, maybe a little existentially shaky, and you come home and you turn on a mindless TV show, something comforting and predictable. Before Zapffe, you might feel guilty about this. You should be doing something productive, something meaningful. You should be confronting your problems, working on yourself, being a better person. After Zapffe, you can just watch the show. You can recognize it for what it is, distraction as survival mechanism, and use it without judgment. You can say, right now, I need to not think, and that's okay, because I'm a conscious creature in an indifferent universe, and sometimes the most reasonable thing to do is watch other people pretend to solve problems that actually don't exist. There's a strange kind of peace in that. Or take anchoring. Maybe your entire sense of self is tied up in your work, your job title, your professional identity, your career trajectory. And maybe somewhere deep down, you know this is just an anchor, that if you lost your job tomorrow, the universe wouldn't care. That your work, however important it feels, is ultimately just a story you're telling yourself to make existence manageable. The pre-Zapffe response might be crisis. If work is meaningless, then who am I? What's the point? The after-Zapffe response is different. It's, yes, this is an anchor, and I need anchors. We all do. So I'm going to hold this one consciously, appreciatively, without mistaking it for ultimate truth. I'm going to let my work matter to me while simultaneously knowing it doesn't matter to the universe. And somehow, both of those things can be true. This is the paradox Zapffe leaves us with. The mechanisms are necessary, the truth is unbearable, and we have to live in the tension between those two facts. You can't live in full existential awareness all the time. You'd go mad. But you also can't live in complete denial without becoming something less than fully human. So you oscillate. You peek behind the veil, then you close the curtain. You feel the weight, then you set it down. You remember, then you forget, then you remember again. And maybe, just maybe, there's something almost heroic in that. In being a creature that can see its own meaninglessness and still get up in the morning, still love people, still create things, still try. Camus, another philosopher who wrestled with absurdity, had a different take. He imagined Sisyphus, the man condemned to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity, as happy. Not because the task has meaning, but because he accepts it fully, owns it, makes it his. Zapffe is less optimistic. He sees the exhausted Sisyphus, using every psychological trick available just to keep pushing the boulder, knowing full well it will roll back down, knowing the entire exercise is futile. But here's what both of them understand. The futility doesn't make the pushing less real. Your life, your loves, your struggles, they're not less genuine just because they're temporary. They're not less important just because the universe doesn't care about them. You care, and you're part of the universe. So in a strange way, the universe does care, through you.
There's a question lurking in all of this that we need to address. If consciousness is such a burden, if awareness causes so much suffering, then should we have less of it? Should we aspire to be more like the animals, present, unreflective, simply existing without the weight of self-awareness? It's tempting, isn't it? Imagine not knowing you're going to die, not questioning whether your life has meaning, not lying awake wondering if you've wasted your potential or chosen the wrong path or hurt people in ways you'll never understand. Imagine just being. But here's the thing, you can't unknow what you know. Consciousness is not a door you can walk back through. You can't unevolve your brain. You can't decide to be less aware. You can only choose how you relate to your awareness. And maybe that's where the real question lives. Not how do I escape consciousness, but what do I do with the consciousness I have? Zapffe identified the mechanisms we use to cope, but he didn't tell us which ones to use or how much or when. That's up to you. Maybe you need more isolation right now. Maybe the world is too much, and the healthiest thing you can do is close some of those doors, stop absorbing every piece of suffering, every reminder of mortality. Or maybe you need less. Maybe you've isolated so much that you've become numb, disconnected, unable to feel anything deeply. Maybe you need to open those doors, let the existential wind blow through, feel something real, even if it's terrifying. Maybe you need to anchor to something, to commit, to believe, to let something matter, even if you can't rationally justify why. Maybe you need the structure, the story, the sense of direction. Or maybe you need to loosen your grip on the anchors you're holding. Maybe you've tied yourself to things that are pulling you underwater, and you need to let go, to drift for a while, to see what happens when you stop defining yourself by your attachments. Maybe you need distraction. Maybe you need to stop thinking so much, analyzing so much, turning everything over in your mind until it loses all meaning. Maybe you need to just exist for a while without commentary. Or maybe you need to stop distracting yourself, to turn off the noise, sit with the silence, let the big questions surface, even though they're uncomfortable. Maybe you need to sublimate, to take everything you're feeling and make something from it, to transform the weight into art, the confusion into exploration, the suffering into something that might help someone else who's feeling what you're feeling. Or maybe you've been sublimating so long that you've forgotten how to just live, how to experience something without immediately trying to capture it, explain it, turn it into something else. The mechanisms aren't good or bad. They're tools, and different tools are useful at different times. What Zapffe gives us isn't a solution, it's a map, a way of understanding the territory we're navigating, the crushing awareness of consciousness, the ingenious ways we've learned to live with it, the price we pay for those coping strategies, the necessity of them anyway. You're still going to wake up tomorrow, still going to brush your teeth, go about your day, love people, struggle with things, try to make sense of it all. Still going to be this strange creature that's aware of being aware, that asks questions it can't answer, that creates meaning in a universe that doesn't provide it. The only difference is you'll know what you're doing. You'll see the mechanisms as mechanisms. You'll recognize isolation when it happens, notice when you're reaching for an anchor, catch yourself mid-distraction, understand your sublimation for what it is. And maybe, just maybe, that small bit of awareness makes you a little more free. Not free from the burden of consciousness, but free to carry it deliberately, consciously, with your eyes open. Zapffe believed that humanity was a tragic mistake, that consciousness was nature's evolutionary overshoot, that we're like elks whose antlers grew so large we can barely survive. But he also kept living, kept writing, kept thinking about the very thing that caused him such despair. And maybe that's the final lesson, not what he said, but what he did. He looked directly at the terror of consciousness. He didn't flinch. He didn't offer false comfort. He just stayed, thought about it, wrote it down, lived with it. So here's what I'm left wondering. If you're going to be cursed with consciousness anyway, if you're going to be this animal that knows it's mortal, that questions its purpose, that can't help but see the mechanisms it uses to cope, what will you do with that curse? Will you resent it, fight it, try to minimize it? Or will you carry it deliberately, maybe even gratefully, not because it's easy, but because it's yours, because it's the price of being able to wonder, to love, to create, to feel awe at the strangeness of being anything at all. The deer doesn't know it's a deer. But you know you're you, and that knowledge is both the heaviest burden and the most peculiar gift. What you do with it, that's still up to you.